What's up, it's Marksman from Marksman's Music Academy, and today I'm going to show you the one tip which is going to take your music from sounding bedroom sounding to professional. Honestly, I haven't seen any YouTube videos on this at all. It's a closely guarded secret. However, I want to share it with you today because I think that everyone needs to know this and start thinking about this as soon as possible. It's actually fairly straightforward, it's just people don't do it. Now, if anyone has been on any of my track feedback live streams, you might hear me say the phrase more automation about 50 million times, and it seems that no one seems to listen or maybe even understand what I'm talking about. So by the way, if you're not a member of the Produce Like a Pro community, go join that by the link in the description because you can get free track feedback calls every Thursday at 4 p.m. But let's dive into what this actually means. What is automation and how can you use it to take your music to that next level, that professional level, which is going to get listeners locked in right from the start and take them on a journey throughout the rest of the track. So let's hop into Ableton, but before we do so, press that like and subscribe button. It really helps me out. Are you ready to discover the secret of the pros? Yes, you are. Let's go into Ableton right now. So here we are in Ableton, and what I have here is a stripped back version of my upcoming release, Retribution, which is going to be out on Elevation, my label, very, very soon, on the 22nd of September. So there's a pre-save link in the bio, so go hit that. It really helps me out. Plus, you'll get to listen to the full track. Now, what I have here basically is just the drums, just the bass, and an ARP melody that I've added in, and I've muted everything else, other than the effects, I believe. What I'm going to show you today is how, using fewer elements, you can still create an amazing, dynamic, evolving journey using automation. So rather than feigning complexity through adding in multiple instruments, you're going to use the instruments that you already have and automate certain parameters on the sounds to make them more fluid, evolving, and create a ton of emotion. So this is the loop we have so far. Now, something you might notice immediately is that bass already has a bit of automation on. What I'm doing is I'm opening up the filter on it, on the synth itself. The sound gets brighter and fuller to emphasize certain parts in the track, usually at the end of an 8-bar section. And if you look at the entirety of this track here, this automation takes place and is basically meant to keep the sound evolving and fluid, but emphasize transitions in certain points in the track. But what I'm going to do is do it on this ARP melody here. So this sound here, which isn't actually in the original track, sounds like this. So it's quite interesting as it is already because it's basically playing like a three-note pattern, but then there's a little melody taking place on the top note. So the first two notes remain constant, but it goes like da da da, like a minor chord, but then it's playing a little melody around there, and there's lots of like variations and what have you. So that's quite interesting as it is. But what is really going to take this to the next level is the automation. So here I'm doing this on Diva. Now you generally want to do this on the synth itself, like right at the source sound. However, you can play with pretty much anything in an effects chain. So you could even play with delays, reverbs, or any other particular sound. But I'm just going to show you two tried and tested things that are always going to work really, really well. And that is, of course, the filter cutoff on the synth itself and the ADSR envelope. So I'm going to play with literally two parameters over time. But listen to how much expression and variety and flavor I can get out of this just by playing with those two parameters. Now, I am doing this with the mouse. I probably would draw this in, so just bear that in mind. But take a listen to this, okay? So let's give it a play. So you can just keep playing with the sound throughout time and use it to emphasize certain transitions or certain points in the track. Now, your focus of emphasis should always be at the end of 8-bar sections. So generally, you're going to be playing with a parameter gradually, and then usually towards the end of the 8 bars, you might go a little bit more extreme and then dial it back a little bit, then go a little bit higher next time, dial it back a little bit higher next time, and dial it back a bit. So I think we can all agree that that sounded pretty interesting, and bear in mind, this is only 3 elements playing: the drums, the bass, and this lead. However, you ideally want to do this on every single element on your track, so they're all constantly evolving gradually, but then more extremely at certain points throughout the track, okay? So I've done this on the bass, and in the main track as well, I've done it on this pluck sound here, which sounds like this. Like, we can even just play with this sound here. So there's already automation on here, but let's just play with that. So on Diva as well, basically what I've done is I've mapped the filter cutoff and the release of which envelope? Envelope and the filter envelope to the same knob here, so I can control them both with one knob. And the way you do this is you press configure. You click the knobs that you want to play with, and they will appear here. And then you press map here. And then what you do is you press, so I wanted to control both decay envelopes at the same time. So I'm going to do it for this macro 4 thing here. I'm just going to do it with resonance, but you click the parameter you want to map, press map, and boom, there you go. But that is not it. If we think about it this way, this control is going to go all the way from 0 to the minimum to the maximum, but we can set our minimum and maximum points so that it's within a range that we want to play with that will sound good. So that's exactly what I've done here with this decay sound. Like, if it was all the way down to at the bottom, then it would just be like this really short, like, attack sound. That's not really what I wanted for the sound. I wanted there to be like a minimum, like, ding sound, like so. If I play this, that's around the minimum point there, but the maximum point was around here. So really long compared to really short. But if I went all the way down here, that would be not really usable in the context of the track. So I wanted to have my minimum and maximum points around here and here. So that's the minimum, and the maximum points only here. However, using this control, I have a full range between 0 and 127 that I can play with and get a lot of character out of it, rather than having maybe a range of about 20, where it's a lot harder. I hope that makes sense. So setting your minimum and maximum points is super important. But look, let's just play with this sound over time to show you how much flavor and expression you can get out of it. So I'm going to turn off the auto filter, which is kind of an arrangement part for the track itself. But just check this out. I'm going to play with, again, just the filter cutoff and the release of these sounds. And I'm going to actually unmap the resonance because we don't need that. There we go. Literally 2 parameters, but check out how much flavor and expression I can get out of this. So in the context of the track. Doing this in your tracks is going to make the most out of the sounds that you have chosen, and because of that you can use much fewer sounds which work together well but still get a full expression out of them. And this is going to work a whole lot better than having multiple tracks which are kind of static and just being added in over time. But then you'll find that your mix is really hard to mix because you've got so many sounds, it's really complicated. But by having fewer sounds which are changing, it's easier to mix, your productions sound a whole lot more cohesive, and you can choose elements which complement each other rather than cause issues in the mix. Now, of course, you need to do this with every single sound in your track. So here again, let's just turn on this stab sound here. So I've done the exact same thing here. I'm playing with the cutoff frequency on Diva here. So if we take a look at this sound, notice how it gets darker and thinner. It gets bigger and wider. over time. So everything is changing over time. Now, this is what the pros are doing, and possibly what you are not doing. And this is one of the reasons why your music isn't going to stand out compared to a professional production, because you're probably not putting in automation. So whenever you hear me say, put more automation in your track, this is what I mean. Have the sounds constantly evolving, constantly changing over time. For reference, when I produce a track, I probably spend about 50% of the entire production process doing automation. It takes a long time, but the more you put in, the more you get out of it. And that's why I would say that my tracks tend to catch the listener right at the start, and they are locked into a journey throughout the entirety of the track because of how sounds are changing and evolving over time. Whereas if they're just static loops, then it gets quite boring and predictable. So the more automation you can do, the more of a journey you can take people on. It enhances your transitions, your breakdowns, your drops, everything to make it sound super polished, super professional, and dynamic. So there you have it. That's how you can use automation to take your tracks to the professional level, and you will stand out so much more than all the other people that don't do this. And believe me, I've listened to thousands of producers' submissions on track feedback calls, and many people send me their music every day. And I would say maybe 2 to 5% at best do this. And the ones that really stand out are those 2 to 5%. So automating your sounds is the key to sounding professional. However, you also need to have good ideas as well to automate. Something that I like to think about is if you have a solid program, as in the notes that you're playing, that you've programmed in are interesting, that can get you so far. If you have a simple programmed melody or programmed part, but you're automating it, then that's pretty good. But when you combine both an interesting melody and automating it over time, so it's evolving, that's when you reach the God tier level. However, this is just a small component of what it takes to sound professional, and I cover a full in-depth guide in my masterclass, which is coming up very soon. So if you want to join that masterclass, head to the link in the description and sign up so you can check it out, where I cover the steps you need to get your music from sounding a bedroom producer to sounding pro, the kind of music that will attract awesome labels. DJs are going to want to play it, Spotify curators are going to want to playlist it, and most importantly, fans are going to want to listen to it more than once, if not multiple times. So click the link in the description to sign up to that masterclass. It's going to be killer. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe on this video if you found it useful. It really helps me out. Drop a comment below what you thought was the most interesting, and if you want me to cover a particular topic, drop it in the comments below. I read all of them and respond to everyone. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.